Hello, everyone. Greetings, all the things. You are watching or listening to Horror Nerds at Church, a ridiculously queer podcast where we take a deep dive into a horror film or a decom and talk about how it connects to queerness, religion, and theology. My name is Pace Warfield, and I am totally Marnie in this movie. Like, the oldest kid who feels all that responsibility, but also doesn't feel like they quite fit in. Yeah, all those things.
And I'm Pastor Emily, and I am the endless puns from Benny.
Oh, yes.
I'm Susanna, and I'm trying to remember this. I think I'm the little kid, the little itty bitty one, the
Oh,
curious.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I
She's
feel like I
adored.
feel like
Cutest.
her. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thanks for joining us, for those of you joining us live, or thanks for joining us for those of you joining us on your podcatchers. If you want more awesome content from us, you can follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/horrornerdsattchurch. And it starts at only $5 to sign up. And this month on Patreon, you are getting Halloween 3, Season of the Witch for our movie commentary,
Mhm.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch and the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina for our Boo Tube. We look at both of the pilots. And then Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, will be our horror buff special, likely to come out maybe a little bit into All Saints-ish time, a little bit after
Mhm.
the Hallows Eve. But
Yep.
you know us and you love us, and it'll get there, we promise.
Yeah, we both had busy months. Uh, I was on vacation for part of this month, and Emily was traveling across the country for part of the month. So it's been busy. But if you're listening to this episode on your favorite podcast provider, check the show notes for any content warnings for this episode. If we mention any books, that will also we'll have links to those in our bookshop.org in the your podcast show notes. And for everyone, whether you're watching or listening, you can check the show notes for links to our newsletter, merch store, Patreon, all those things.
Mhm.
Well, I guess we can. Well, we're going to cover Halloweentown. We'll talk about that in a moment. But before we get into that, how's everyone been doing?
Process of doing moving things, so it's been hectic or an
Mm-hmm.
adventure, shall we say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I did, however, oh, huge announcement for folks. I finished reading Winter, and I finished listening to Parable of the Sower. I'm feeling
Wow,
very accomplished. I'm not
those are
totally
very
done with
big
the Lunar
updates.
Chronicles books, but like progress, folks, progress. It's
Mm-hmm.
very exciting.
Big progress. Um, I have been, let's see. Well, I was in Mexico in Cozumel all of last week, which was nice. It was my first time going there, and it's a really cool place to visit because it has very historic, like if you're a history nerd like I am, a lot of history there, especially with the Maya civilization and things like that. And it's San Miguel, which is the main town on Cozumel, is just really a fun town. Lots of good food, lots of cool culture and stuff. So it's amazing being there. I am trying to get back into the swing of things with work. It's kind of not going well. But that's
It's
always how it
hard.
goes.
It's hard.
Yeah. And it's nothing like my work is great. So if any of you are people I know from work. Like I love both my jobs. It's just, or both the sites I work at for my job. It's just, it's always a transition to come back to work after a week off. So,
Hmm.
and this is
Hmm.
like my first like non-dissertation vacation in like 2 years. So
Yeah,
it was nice.
it's been a while. Yeah. Also, I forgot there's somebody in a loud car next to us. We are drinking in this house our Guilford Witch's Potion number 69, which as of the
Nice.
the TikTok has not gone up, but as of the posting to podcatchers, the TikTok will have gone up and we'll link to it in the show notes for our Sabbath sips. Burke and I made a reappearance of Sabbath sips on TikTok just so that we could make this drink for you all. Um, and it is
I love
delightful.
it.
It is
It
delightful. I've
sounds
not
lovely.
yet told Pace or what is in it, but
I'll
I
find out
imagine.
soon enough when I see the TikTok.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of reading. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
drinking LaCroix, so whisper of lime in another room or whatever. People joke about it. But so I read a lot of books, including, do I have it? Yeah, I do. This awesome book by past guest of the podcast, TJ Tranchel,
Mhm.
who his Black Hawk cycle is it's a trilogy basically of books, involves exorcism, Mormons. It's just such a fantastic trilogy of books. And not only does this is a special hardbound edition I have, but you can buy all of the paperback versions from his website, and I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes for you podcatchers. But I swear this is not like me. TJ does not sponsor this podcast. It's just I love this book so much that like I have to brag about it. So but yeah, I was privileged to be able to get a hardbound copy. He had a limited run of the hardbound copies. And I have my name in the back with a special thank you in the acknowledgments page, which is the first time I've ever been in a book acknowledgement page to my knowledge. So anyway, it's really
Ooh.
cool. But so that's the big one I read. I also read some Doctor Who and stuff. I'm still watching through Doctor Who. I
James.
am right at after 13 regenerates into 14. I have not started the specials of those yet, and I'm nearing the end of the seventh Doctor's run. It's where I'm at. And I've been
Mm.
watching so many spooky movies, but the one I have to talk about is it's a really buzzy one that came out. A lot of people were talking about it when it came out in the spring or summer, early summer of this year, but it's finally on HBO streaming. I saw the TV glow. Oh my God, this is such a good movie. So check that out. It's a horror movie, but it's not like scary horror. It's more suspenseful horror. And
Gotcha.
then also the last thing I want to talk about in this section is before I check in with Susanna is um I watch so the Chainsaw Awards are hosted by
Mm.
Fangoria magazine every year. Fangoria, the number one horror movie magazine, long history, amazing. But every year they host Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, which is like horror films version of the Oscars. And so this year they uh they hosted it in October. In years past, it's been in May, like an award. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
don't remember what we have lined up, but yeah. So many things. Oh, I forgot to say, I watched Inside Out 2,
nice.
which was
I
really
have
cute.
yet to watch that one.
It's a good one. What
What
about
about
you,
you,
Susan?
Susanna?
Sorry, I'm just double checking our live
You're
stream.
muted for us.
Oh yeah, sorry. Why won't you unmute? I'm just checking our live stream health because it didn't look great. But your camera was lagging a little bit, and I was just like, so just checking all of those things. Um,
Yeah.
Making sure that it's on because it could have some problems. Like they look to me like they're having problems seeing it, so I don't even know if anybody's getting this right now.
Hmm.
Hmm.
which is, super fun. That's great. Yeah, the
Oh,
Facebook
fun.
one ended. The Facebook one definitely ended.
Oh,
The YouTube one
We
did
need to.
not end. Facebook dropped us,
Okay.
basically. But
that's
Let's just
okay. We
record
can
from now
post.
on just to be safe,
hold on.
too.
What?
Will you hit
to their
record?
computer. Yeah, sorry. The YouTube one.
But
did
also, we
not
can just
drop
put.
us.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
We can just put on Facebook to send people to YouTube for now, if it's still going live
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check one more thing.
Welcome to technology. Susanna is our wild magic, and she works hard to counterbalance Pace and I's anti-magic when it comes to technology.
Yeah,
And
it's
sometimes
legit
our
my-
anti-magic wins out.
I think I actually rebooted it. And I don't. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
I
know what that
actually
means,
rebooted
but
it.
yay!
Yeah, I think I rebooted
Woohoo!
it with the
Sweet.
second hot part. So like, that's awesome. I'm just double checking.
Perfect.
And... Oh lordy be!
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It just started.
my
it just
super
rebooted.
villain power legit is
Oh, is that what it is?
bad
You being a super
technology.
villain?
So
Nice.
Nice.
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
we've talked about this. Don't forget, because my super villain name is crap. What is that called? The Luddite. That's my super villain name. I have a whole costume and everything planned. I'd be the Luddite, and my superpower would be destroying technology.
that's that would be my personal. So you're my nemesis, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, look at
Basically.
us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're
all right,
the-
all right.
Yes.
We
I'm
are
ready.
we are totally enacting the friends to enemies to friends again trope, I think, in the villain arc.
You're my Magneto.
Perfection.
Magneto
Perfection.
can do that. Can't Magneto do that?
Yeah.
Like mess up technology.
And
Yeah.
then that means you're Professor X.
I am.
Ooh,
Makes
that's
sense.
scary. That's a lot of
That
power.
I can't walk a whole lot right now, and I spend all my time sitting down in front of digital technology. So it works for me. It
Yeah.
works for me. We're getting ready to move, and we just had a new housemate move in, and so like I've been like super nervous about, because our dogs are rescue puppers and they are very barky with new people, and I'm nervous that like
They barked at Matt when he came home today.
they barked at me when I came in. Like they were like, "Oh, it's you," and then they were like, "Oh, sorry, man." When they put the ears back, and they're like, "Oh, sorry." and the
Gandalf
tail swag.
barks whenever someone comes home too. It doesn't matter who it is.
And I just, I feel so mortified, and I just want her to be comfortable here, and she's nervous that we're gonna think that she's too much, and and so it's this whole thing. But the truth is, she's gonna be the best housemate we've ever had, that I've ever had. The truth is, so not a problem. Like, at this point in our lives, we've all had terrible housemates. Just terrible. I'm really happy to have her with us. I'm nervous about the big, huge move. But this house that we're moving to, I have some concerns about it. But, all in all, it works for us. So, my sister and her partner have the top floor, the whole floor. And it's got, the weird, triangle ceiling thing. Then me and Emily and Matt have the 3 bedrooms on the second floor. And then our new housemate, which I don't know if I have permission to say her name right now, so I'm not going to, is on the first floor, which works with her physical needs. And then my sister's partner's sister is in the basement. And it's just everybody's their own floor. It's just, I'm happy about it. It's a lot of parking. There's no grass in the backyard. It's just gravel in the backyard. So there's no backyard. That's not great for the dogs. But there is a side yard. And I'm
Although
just
you
really.
have permission if you want to
You
share,
do.
because she is a friend of
You're
the
just
podcast.
granted.
Oh, okay, okay.
And she's
So,
listening right now.
a friend of the podcast, River Needham, is moving in with us. And we are
Mm-hmm.
super excited because this officially makes this the gayest house I've ever heard of. Like, this is the queerest, transist, like, it's so. This whole house
I mean, for the
is so
record,
queer.
we have a token
Oh yeah, my
cishet.
sister's partner's sister, who's going to be moving into the basement. She's a medical assistant, and she has a lot of odd hours and stuff, and is going to school and everything. So she has her own exit. She can go in and out. Like, anyway, she's our token sis. She's very, very sweet. She's kind of like a
No, she's our token cishet.
token
We got a
cishet.
few
Yes,
token sisses.
it's true. We do have a
We even
she's our
have
token
a
cishet.
cis man, a token cis man.
Yes, but he's bisexual, so he's not as bad as
Yeah.
you know the generic kind. He's a brand name.
Yeah.
I love it.
Brand name cis man.
You know,
I love it.
he's my Cymbalta, not my Deloxetine. You know, like he. So it worked.
Yep.
So it worked. And I'm just really nervous about the move because poor people, like, we never throw anything away because we're afraid we're not going to have the money to buy it again. Like, it just, like, there's like a whole lot of trauma about moving, and this happening during this season, which for me, this is my season of queer grief, right? The beginning of All Souls, all the way through New Year's, for me is the season of queer grief. The holiday season sucks.
Right.
I have all these terrible things that have happened during the holiday. I'm a church person, so I've had doubly horrible things happen during the holiday. And then and so for me, I think I'm turning it into a season of lament and waiting for the new year and new life to come. And so I mean, I see it as this very somber but like reflective and healing kind of season. And everybody else is like, la la la, jingle bells, and I'm like, generational trauma, like, so it's it's the season of queer grief for me, but I'm doing good. I'm gonna have another holiday with all of my queer family, and like, living the dream. So there's anxiety. I hate the season, but we're trying to live the queer dream. Like, other than like,
We just gotta find PJs.
right. It's really hard for us
there
to
you
find
go.
PJs that fit everybody. But like, it other than building a tunnel from my house to my best friend's house, this is the queer dream of childhood, right? Like,
I
this
love
is
it.
it. So I'm trying to lean into
Yeah.
it because I think you've had JM on the podcast before. Have you had JM?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a friend of the
And
podcast,
they're
JM.
probably going to come back for this season too. We just need to figure out what movie.
Excellent. Excellent. So, like,
Yeah.
as JM likes to say, anxiety and excitement have the same energy.
Fear.
So fear and excitement have the
Fear
same
and
energy.
anticipation.
So, patience. So I'm just trying to lean into the things I
Yeah.
fear and look at them as I'm anticipating good things. So that's my long spiel.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sorry, I was a little distracted at the beginning looking at the streams. I have
Yeah.
4 monitors and 7 windows, so. But yes, continue gaming.
I love it. Yeah, and that's a good reminder that we have an episode, one of our first or not Bluetooth, one of our first minisodes has Susanna as a guest star to talk, a featured guest to talk about our queer holiday survival guide. And then also I just wrote an article or a blog post for Spirit and Truth Publishing that's going to go up later this week about how to accompany people who have family of origin trauma during Thanksgiving and the holidays. So that'll be up on the Spirit and Truth blog, and I'll try to share that from my Facebook page and HNAC's page and all those things.
Yeah. Nice. Also,
Now,
I forgot to mention, for those of you listening, to check our show notes for content notifications notifications for this episode.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oops.
Um,
I can read a script.
I say it though
Hmm.
too, so I need to make it so that only one of us says it. I thought I fixed that in this script, but I didn't because it's said it by
Oh.
both people right now. Um, but that brings us to our big announcement, which is if you are a procrastinator or if you have ADHD, there's the Venn diagram is a circle. Um, you likely haven't, and you own a pet, you likely have not yet submitted to our pet costume contest. And because we on the podcast all are neurodivergent, we get it. So we have
Hmm.
extended our
And we
deadline.
care about you. We
Yes.
want you to have this opportunity.
Yes, so many of you have so many cute pets, and I know y'all are dressing them up. Just send them the pics to us. bit.ly/
Hmm.
HNAC pets 24. HNAC and P are all caps. The rest is lowercase. bit.ly HNAC pets 24. And submit your
Hmm.
dog, your cat, your gerbil, your goldfish, your stuffed animal, your
Your
pet
stuffed
rock,
animal,
your
your plant.
plant, whatever you want. We don't accept submissions of children because that's hard to do as a contest because of all the stuff, but any other non-human thing that you love and is part of your life, feel free to submit to this. Even a book,
Indeed,
dress up a book. We don't care.
right?
Anything,
Anything,
really.
anything. I'm super excited because I know a couple of the submissions that are have been submitted or are coming, and there's one that is very, very scary, and I can't wait for everybody to get their own shock and scare from it.
I love it. I'm
It'll be
excited.
awesome. Hmm.
And as a reminder, the winner, so if you submit, not only do you get all the cred of winning a horror podcast fan favorite voted pet if you win the contest, you also get free
Hmm.
merch. And one random person from any submissions will get a
Hmm.
personalized art of your pet, stuffed animal, whatever, by none other than Emily Ewing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be quite fun. Mhm.
Samesies. Well, I guess we can get into the movie then, which is Halloweentown.
Woo!
Came out in 1998, so I was 13. Um, I had just turned 13 when this movie came out. Came out October 17th, 1998. Directed by Dwayne Dunham, who was an assistant editor on many of the Star Wars movies, which we
Mm.
covered last season. Also in Indiana Jones. He directed Homeward Bound, episodes of the original Twin Peaks, this film, of course, and then a few episodes of Star Wars Clone Wars. So a
Ooh.
lot of connections to our podcast. Um,
Mhm.
1998 was, and it's a DCOM. I'll explain what that is. Um,
Mm.
DCOM is an acronym that many fans of Disney call Disney Channel Original Movies. And this is, in fact, a
I
Disney Channel original movie.
I used to love Disney Channel original movies. Every month they would come out with a new movie. I
Mhm.
watched them all
I mean, they're
way
still pretty
longer
much
than I
doing
should have for my age.
I mean, they're still pretty much doing that on Disney Plus now. It just transitioned. And some stuff I
Yeah.
think Disney Channel still exists, so I think there's like simultaneous premieres on Disney Plus and Disney Channel. But they still have like a good
Mhm.
solid one movie a month coming out for the middle grade and YA audiences. So,
Yeah.
um, anyway,
Halloweentown. So good.
yeah.
So
1998 was a fairly big year in film. A year after Titanic, so can't list that one. But Saving Private Ryan came out. Two asteroid movies weirdly came out,
mhm.
Armageddon and Deep Impact. Mulan came out, Disney, Bug's Life, Pixar came out, Disney live action,
Mhm.
Dr. Dolittle, and the Parent Trap remake came out. Ever After came out, Patch Adams. Twilight, which I have to say because it's not that Twilight, but it is another movie called Twilight, not about vampires. Three Ninjas, High Noon at Mega Mountain. The only reason I named this is such an obscure movie is it is one of Brian's and my favorite franchises. We are obsessed with Three Ninjas. Um, because I'm a history nerd, Elizabeth came out, and also we're a religion podcast. We're going to talk about the reformer that is Queen Elizabeth the First. Star Trek Insurrection came out, and The Prince of Egypt came out. So big year.
The Prince of
Uh,
Egypt is phenomenal. That is
yep. And they're making a live action movie of
such
it, so
good.
I'm excited for that too. Um, then in horror world, Godzilla came out, the 1998 American remake, where Godzilla looks more like a Tyrannosaurus Rex than he does like Godzilla. Cube came out, which is one of my weird favorite horror movies, even though it's so bad. Halloween H2O 20 years later came out, which we covered in season one. Adam's Family Reunion, which we covered in season two. And that was Emily's first episode as a
Yeah.
guest co-host at the time,
Yep,
before they became
without
official
doubt.
co-host. Yeah. Casper Meets Wendy, which we covered Casper in season five, which is our ghost season, the
Mhm.
original. And Wendy is played by none other than Hilary Duff,
Mm.
um, who would go on to
Who
become famous
via
in
the Disney
DCOM.
Channel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Uh, the Psycho remake came out, and we covered the original Psycho in season one. Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island, which we covered in one of our boot tubes, not that movie, but the show. What Dreams May Come, which a few people have suggested we cover, so we probably will have to. I really, really don't like the movie though, that
That's fair.
so maybe we'll
But we
cover it one
know
day.
that we can hate the movie and still have a great episode.
I know, but that also means I have to like sit through it, and I hate sitting through that movie. But
Okay, but is
it'll
it going to
probably
be as bad
happen.
as Black Sunday?
Worse. Yeah. I have really bad. I What Dreams May Come is probably one of my least favorite religious themed movies ever. It's really
Oh.
like I would
Wait, is
rather
it
watch a Passion
worse than
of the
Passion of the
Christ than
Oh,
yes. I would rather watch
oh,
Passion of the Christ than What Dreams May Come. That's where it ranks for me. So I
wow.
guess we have to cover it now so y'all can hear
Wow.
why I hate it so much. I
Yeah.
hear the book is fantastic though, so maybe I'll read the book one of these days. Anyway,
Mm.
then there's some fun 90s horror movies. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which is a slasher movie. Uh Meet Joe Black, where Brad Pitt plays the devil. Pretty funny. The Faculty, which one of my favorite 90s movies, and I have a memory of watching that uh on VHS. So this must have been the year after it comes out. We don't know which special guests we'll have because we have like five people who all want to be special guests for that movie. We're
It's
gonna
true.
have to do like a Hunger Games behind the scenes to figure out who wins, who's gonna be our Katniss. And then Vampires, which I have not seen, but I actually know nothing about that movie. Other than we covered Vampires in season three, the Beast, not this film.
Yeah.
So, when was the first time you've seen this movie?
Well, as I already hinted at, I saw this movie when it came out on Disney Channel original movies, and have watched it on and off for the 2+ decades since then. 2.5
So
decades
you
since then.
pro so you would have
I've
been
seen it all. Yeah.
11, about to turn 12 then, I think, when you first came out,
Yeah.
if
Yep.
I do my math
Almost
correctly.
12. Yeah. Yeah. I quite enjoy Disney Halloweentown. What about you, Pace? Also, most recently,
I
I watched
wonder,
them yesterday. I watched Halloweentown yesterday, and then
yeah,
Calabar's Revenge and Halloweentown High today, right before this.
amazing. Are you updating your letterbox? I hope you are with all these movies you're watching.
Shoot, I
But
need to do that.
yeah. I first I need to update horror nerds at churches. I've been updating mine, but I'm behind on HNACs. Anyway, the first time I watched this movie, so I guess you can take a shot for Emily because they saw it before they were 12. This is like a first. No,
No,
Wizard of Oz was the first. So this is like a second that you've seen before the age of 12.
well, but we don't take shots for me seeing something before the age of 12. We take shots
I
for
know,
you
but it's
seeing
such a
something.
rarity.
It's
It's such
true.
a
It is
rarity
rare.
though that
So
I
maybe you
think,
have to take two shots. Okay,
oh, there we
cheers.
go. I like it. Um, I saw this film. It was 13. I was 13 when it came out, but I saw this film for the first time maybe 2 years ago. I watched on Disney Plus at some point just because it
Really?
was a spooky movie. Yeah, I've never seen it. I've not seen any of the sequels either. Um, so my second slash maybe third, but probably second time watching it was for this episode. And I'm seriously interested when we get to rating. So don't answer now. This will keep our listeners in suspense and viewers in suspense. I'm seriously
Dun, dun, dun.
interested when it gets to rating. How much of you loving this movie is nostalgia? Because as someone coming to it new, this movie made no damn sense. It was so it was so
Oh
confusing.
no.
The plot made no sense, and everything was like such a. But I don't know. We'll get to it as we walk through it. So I'm not gonna go too much more into it. But anyway,
All right.
so have some behind the scenes. Uh, it was written by Steve White and Sherry Singer, who are a married couple. They met while working for ABC, which is Disney's network. Um, and their idea was based on Steve White's daughter asking him when she was young, Dad, where do all the creatures from Halloween go the rest of the year when it's not October 31st? So that's what gave
Mhm.
him the idea for this movie. It was filmed in St. Helens, Oregon, and is Twilight in Oregon, right?
I think so. It's
Or
Forks.
Washington?
Yeah, I can't
Forks,
remember.
Washington, Forks, Oregon, whatever. I'm hoping that Twilight
Forks,
and
Washington.
okay, so close-ish, but not that close. Same side of the
Yeah.
country at least. Um,
Yeah.
I would love it, love it, love it if Halloweentown and Twilight were set in the same universe. We did see a vampire in this movie. She
It's
didn't
true, we
sparkle, but
did.
she wasn't in direct sunlight, so I don't know if she
Yeah,
would
it was.
sparkle if she was in direct sunlight.
Who knows?
And we did see a werewolf too, but the werewolves must be a
Mm,
different breed of werewolf, if you can say that. Um, like how we have different dog breeds. I don't know. That sounds weird to say about a werewolf, but a different
yeah.
species maybe of werewolf than the ones in Twilight. But that is something that our Twilight episode, go back and listen to our absolutely unhinged Twilight retrospective where I talk about everything from glittery cum to, and this is
Mm.
all, so all of this comes from, in case you haven't realized, this is an after hours podcast. I'm sorry if you're just now finding that out. But anyway,
Never mind
we
that
should
we're
add
watching
that to
a
the
kids movie.
right. But what was I going to say? Oh, so the spark so the author of the Twilight series, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but
Stephanie
she
Myers.
wrote this, yeah, Stephanie Myers, thank you. She wrote this guide to Twilight, which is kind of behind the scenes talking about like expanded lore, kind of like J.R.R. Tolkien's appendices to Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
there's just some really, really weird stuff in there about how there are no black vampires, because even if you are black as a human, when you get bit, you turn white, um, or lightly tan, as she says, to also learning that the tribe of werewolves that Jacob Black, is unique to that tribe of indigenous people of Native Americans, and that there are other types of werewolves out there, but their werewolf is a super magic indigenous magical trope thing that Stephanie Myers has going on because she's racist. And also Mormon. TJ Trenchel talks about that too. Mormonism's obsession with First Nations peoples. Um, in really harmful and gross ways, primarily. But so Jacob
Mhm.
Black's tribe is a special type of werewolf that gets its power from Native American magic, whereas there are other types of werewolf that are the more tradition types of werewolves, but they have mostly died out from vampires killing them. So we learn all that. So all that is to say, the werewolf in this movie, even though he looked very different than Jacob Black, could still be the same universe as Twilight, just be
Okay.
the different type of werewolf.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
I'm when we get to when we get to the when we get to
Mhm.
the retrospective, we'll have to see what is joining our expanded universe of films, what we can argue are similar enough that it could be part of an expanded universe. Um,
Those are.
so some other stuff. I said decom. Debbie Reynolds, rest in peace. She would introduce herself on set to all the kids as Princess Leia's mother, which is adorable because she was in fact Carrie Fisher's mother,
Yeah.
who played Princess Leia. And she's most known for Singing in the Rain. She had some guest appearances on Golden Girls, which was our very first BooTube. And Will and Grace, she was famously as Grace's mother. She's a guest on RuPaul's Drag Race, big fan of queer people, which is awesome. But she was a first person cast, and the rest of the cast was kind of built around her. Um, Kimberly J.
Gotcha.
Brown was cast as Marnie. And Kimberly J. Brown was also featured in our Ghost season in the our Butu on Rose Red, um, where she plays like an autistic girl with special powers, which is also kind of weird, especially because she's um, presented as neurotypical in most films and then is like severely autistic in that movie. And it's just not well done. Stephen King doesn't
Yeah.
know what he's doing. Um, but anyway, she's a great
Truth.
actor aside from that. Uh, And then there is the casting controversy. So as a fan of this, can you explain perhaps not necessarily behind the scenes, but like what the controversy is though? Like why are people upset about the fourth movie?
Oh, because they changed the character. They changed the actor for Marnie,
Yeah. So Sarah Paxton was recast as Marnie for the fourth movie.
which is
And the
terrible.
yeah, and the truth is it's never fully been revealed why she was recast because Kimberly J. Brown said that she was initially in talks to be in four, but they eventually went a different direction. And she said it was a studio decision. And if the studio did it, why? So,
Yeah, I have no idea. They also cut out Sophie, the youngest kid,
yeah,
um, after the first two movies. They just like,
I think she's in the third one as because she's listed in the cast of the third one, but not the fourth.
uh,
But I
but
haven't
she's
seen the
not
th you watch.
like she's in the third, but not as much. Like they're phasing her out in the third. Also, like
Yeah.
they're spaced out, and so like she's aging the most
Hmm.
noticeably out of all of them because she starts out the youngest. But
Yeah.
yeah, I am not a fan of them getting rid of Kimberly J. Brown. I liked her. I thought she was a great Marnie.
Yeah. Um, and it's only the last one. Uh, there have been perpetual rumors about is there going to be a fifth film? And Kimberly J. Brown has said that she would love to return. So hoping if they do make a fifth film, they'll bring back the original Marnie.
Yeah,
Uh,
that'd be cool.
so behind the scenes for this season of our podcast is early on when we're doing our witch franchise um planning for a
Mhm.
very long time. Halloweentown was the franchise that we're going to center the season around. And then we chose not to. I think in part because like it felt weird to only have a four film franchise. It felt weird to carry a whole season. And also, since witches can be very scary, we wanted to make sure we could get in a good representation of like movies and stuff too. But there's a long time though that this would have been a franchise. So you might have been getting all four of the Halloweentown movies.
think that would have been the case only if, for sure, it would not have been the case if Pace had watched any of them. I'm pretty positive.
Probably not. Because yeah, I wasn't a fan of the first one, so I cannot imagine that they get better as the franchise continues. Usually franchises
Yeah,
get worse. It's very rare for a franchise to get better as it goes on.
it's true. It's true. The second one is pretty good. It has a similar, I mean, they all, I think most franchises, this is one of the things that we've discovered in horror, right? Most of the franchises
Hmm.
have fairly similar plots. You just
Yeah.
tweak a few of the things. So in
Hmm.
that respect, like it actually has a lot more diversity of plot than most horror franchises. The first two kind of follow that same kind of pattern. And then the third and the fourth kind of veer off of it a little bit. The third still fits mostly. But whenever you introduce
Yeah.
time travel,
Oh God. Of course.
yep, yep.
I can't wait to watch these one day. I'm sure we'll cover them eventually as at least movie commentaries, if nothing else, as we continue merrily down our way. The last piece of behind the scenes I have is the recast is a big thing, of course, but for all four
Mhm.
films, only three actors were consistent throughout. Debbie Reynolds, of course, Judith Hoag, who plays the mom of Marnie, and she
Mhm.
is most known for being. The whole time I was watching this movie, it's like I know her from somewhere. Where do I know her? And she played April in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
I
and then
didn't
she
realize that.
also had a brief cameo, not necessarily cameo, but like a small part in A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, which we covered in season four.
Yeah, I think I recognized her when we watched that movie. And I don't know that
And
I knew why, but I was like, I know this. But yeah,
and
I
then
forgot about
Joey Zimmerman is the only other actor to be in all four, and he plays the brother Dylan.
it.
So,
Yeah.
well, do you
Mm.
have a one sentence summary of this film?
I do indeed. Grandma Witch reminds the family of who they are.
Oh,
This
I
was
love
not
that.
one of my best uh, one sentence summaries, but there you have it. I have a sentence of a summary, and it is almost certainly longer than yours, though you did not write yours down.
Yeah, because I think my one sentence summary is thus. A TV show worth of ideas tries to fit itself into a movie, made for TV movie. I think mine might actually be longer than yours.
You know
So
what?
actually, yeah, mine is longer. Wow.
I'm gonna get in on the fun, and
Do it.
I
Go
would
for
like
it.
to say dysfunctional healthy families, even the healthy air quotes cishet families are dysfunctional too.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that one. Even
Mm-hmm.
the healthy families are
Right.
dysfunctional too.
We'll get this in the deep dive, but this movie is so fucking queer. And I mean, I know we're covering a kids movie, so I'm not even here's the deal, y'all. Um, every now and again, Emily tries to make Pace behave and record an episode for the podcast that is kid appropriate with language. And well, first of all, not necessarily, we believe anything can be appropriate for kids as long as it's contextualized and stuff, but just kind of PG, I guess is a better way to say it.
Also,
A
for the
PG
record,
episode
this
for
was
kids.
not just me. This was a like pattern for the podcast ahead of time, and I just appreciated it and encourage it.
No, no, this so the pattern, so point of clarification. The podcast has always, from its
I know
inception,
why
tried to
you
have a diverse range of movies we cover, including kid movies and non-scary movies. Our episodes were never meant to be PG as far as
Oh.
swearing
Oh,
until
well then fuck
until
that
we
shit.
did
Let's
well,
go.
yeah, until we did Vampirina, which was
Oh,
specifically requested to be PG. So that's when we started to try to be a little bit more conscientious of that. But what
that's
I'm
true.
saying is I am A, too high, B, too tired, and C, we have so many adult listeners of the podcast who are queer. Like, we can cuss about kids' movies. It's fine. We can be
It's true.
irreverent.
It's true.
We're the
It's true.
After Hours podcast through and through. Every now and again, we'll do a PG movie. Not a PG movie, but a PG episode. But by and large,
Yeah,
we're always going to be After Hours. So,
true.
all, so all that to say, though, this movie's so fucking queer. So queer. And that's something I want to talk about in the deep dive. It's very much like
Mhm.
a queer allegory of like the daughter wants to be a lesbian, but the mom's like, just because I was a lesbian in college doesn't mean you can be a lesbian. I'm going to choose for you. You live in the cis heteronormative world. That's where we chose to live. We don't live at Lilith Fair. Ah,
Yeah.
so we'll get the deep dive. But we can roll through this movie though.
Yeah,
Um,
we can.
which just to say, like, another reason why I identify uh with her so much, Marnie so much, is because she is such a horror nerd. So like right off the bat, she's like talking about the original
Yeah.
Wolfman film, and she's talking about the pentagram, which is something her grandmother gives her. She's like, this is what Lon Chaney was given in that movie. And like, that's a deep cut. I love it. I have mad respect. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, huge fan of Marnie. Love that she loves Halloween. Really also pissed at her mom not letting her participate. Not even like, if I get not wanting your daughter to be a witch or whatever, but you can't even tell her why she can't do Halloween. Like, come on, that's really
Right?
bad parenting there.
Especially when your dead husband and you met on Halloween. Like,
Right?
pretty sure if he was still alive, you'd be celebrating Halloween. Not gonna lie.
Right? So,
Also,
So wait,
that's part of what I love about, yeah.
is it an allegory about queer stuff or is it an allegory about sex ed in school? Because
yes, all of it. All of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like that's
How
my
different are
thought.
those things?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too, though. I agree with Emily. Like, that's also kind of the same issue because even when there is sex ed in school, queer sex ed and queer confident sex ed is almost never part of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I
Um,
think I think it's also interesting, like you face identify with Marnie. Susanna identifies with Sophie, and part of what's fascinating about Sophie is she has this antenna, right? She has this sense when
yeah.
someone is coming, and that carries through in her in the sequels. But she has this like antenna that like somebody's coming, something's not right, something's off, um,
Mm,
which is also an antenna that Susanna possesses. Which
yeah,
then
and
puts me as Dylan, which is like annoying, but also not the
you
least
what?
accurate
Right,
ever.
right. But also, that's further proof that this is set in the Twilight verse because one of the vampire superpowers that only women get is intuition.
It's
Oh.
And it
true.
makes sense that a witch would also be able to get this only woman power of intuition in the Twilight verse.
You
Um,
are just really gunning for this to be the Twilight verse,
right?
and
Come on.
I'm here for it.
Um,
I mean, it's a little bit more of a stretch than Casper being not that much more.
well, I have only seen this movie. So for me, this movie it's right in line with Twilight Verse, but I'm sure the rest of them might get too weird for it. Or have more contradictions. Uh, Dylan is such a brat though, and I do not mean that and then to you, Emily, because you just said you identified with Dylan. But come on, like he's like such a freaking snitch. I was raised
Yeah.
I was raised in a suburb of Baltimore. You don't snitch. You don't. Balmer, we don't snitch. What is wrong with this child? Going after his siblings. It's like saying
Yeah.
to going to the queer allegory. It's like, Mom, I saw that Marnie had fried green tomatoes by her bedstand. You know what that means?
hmm yeah. He is not great in that respect. And that is not part of how I mean I basically by default associate with him. Like because you do
Yeah.
have the other two. Um but yeah, I
But he is also has very
he also
five
is
energy on the Enneagram, so I'll give that. Yeah,
he definitely
that
has five
tracks.
energy. He also doesn't want to admit that he's magical, and yet in
Yeah.
every movie, his magic comes into play. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's a like I think there's also an amount of maybe misogyny or something that right that like he can't
Yep.
admit that this is not the real hard rational science because he doesn't want
Mm-hmm.
that to be true, even though it is. Yeah.
I'm not
So
gonna
he's
drag I'm not gonna drag fives, but that is a five trope. It doesn't fit with my worldview, so therefore I'm gonna struggle with it quite a bit. Um, we get a little bit of witch lore, which we'll repeat there, but first of all, similar to Sabrina,
Mhm.
Marnie is half human, and so are
Mhm.
her siblings. But unlike Sabrina, where it's the 16th birthday that one comes into their own, it's the 13th Halloween that a witch comes
Mhm.
into her powers. So that's one reason why this can't be shared
Yep.
with the Sabrina verse. Um,
It's true. It's
also,
true.
when I was watching through it, not realizing that this would become a plot point that would come back later, I wrote down Mortals see, Mortals do because I loved it. I thought that was like a fun thing that, but
Yeah.
and it's kind of like and you could kind of it's a Disney movie, so they can't go too much into the commentary, but it's kind of still a slight dig at Christianity of like saying Christianity is still Samhain from Halloween from Samhain and stuff like this from these pagan witchy traditions. And that's kind of like a running theme, like jack-o'-lanterns is a Samhain tradition and how it's co-opted into this semi-Christian, semi-secular holiday of Halloween. Um,
Oh, yeah.
then
I love Aggie.
yeah,
I love Grandma.
she is so
Aggie
good.
Grandma is so wonderful. There's,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
just love her.
Uh, going
Also,
back to
I love
Dil
Benny
oh
because
yeah.
he has all the
Yeah.
buns.
Going back
Oh,
to
so
Dylan though,
good.
I love that quote where Dylan's trying to be brave and then he immediately sees his mom and blabs to her and snitches. Uh and Marnie's like, I thought you were being brave. And he's like, but it's mom. I can't be brave around mom.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah. Also, like, never trust a cishet X is a moral
Right.
of this story. The cishets A
Hmm.
are not okay, but then the way that cishets do breakups is just weird.
Yeah. I would yeah,
I don't get
true.
it. Like some queer people
Um
do breakups that way, but it's usually because one of the people is like trying real hard to be a cishet
yeah, right.
in mannerisms.
Comp heading
Yeah.
is legit. And that brings me to like the wait, what's his name? Who's the kid with who was the bully? Yeah, okay, that was Luke. So then who's Benny?
Benny's the skeleton taxi driver.
Oh, okay, that's helpful because I was getting confused. So anyway,
No bones about it.
the weird comp heading at the end of this movie between Luke
Mm,
and Marnie, disgusting. What? It was so shoehorned in there. There's no reason for it. And it's like, I guess I have to reward him for redeeming himself. We'll get to the HNAC test later by giving him a kiss that may be hinting towards a romantic relationship. He treated you like
it,
shit the whole movie.
yeah, it's tricky. His particular role is tricky. Longer term because there's also an aspect of like internalized hatred, right? Like he literally does this all of his own volition for the promise of looking human and
Yeah.
thinks that that is the goal. And so then like when Marnie does kiss him, it's not his human form. Um, and so I think there's a complicating aspect of it. I don't think you're wrong, and I think there's a complicating aspect
Yeah,
in that
but the
respect.
complicated it to me it sounds similar to like saying, well, bullies are all bullied at home, which is why they're bullied. It's like it doesn't erase the harm. So I get the
Yeah.
self-hatred,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that
yeah.
does not mean you can be a little shit to people. And so like I get the kiss scene, the kiss part has like other aspects to it, like a Beauty and the Beast kind of thing. But at the same time, it's like very competi and gross too. And it's always,
Mhm.
always a beautiful woman who has to fall in love with an ugly man. It's never an
Oh yeah.
ugly man
Oh
who
yeah.
can fall in love with a beautiful woman. And I mean,
No.
it's never the other way around. A beautiful woman can fall in love with an ugly man. It's never that. And I hate that as well. But there is a lot of disability and facial differences stuff I want to talk about in the deep dive. But I also want to talk a little bit about Calabar in our walkthrough here because kind of similar to
Mhm.
Magneto, he kind of has a point. Like the way Debbie Reynolds' character describes uh the way Aggie describes like the reason why Halloweentown exists is really shitty. She's like, so basically humans were trying to kill all of us and murder all of us, and that made us retaliate. But since we don't want to be, but since when they go low, we go high energy.
We go high.
Um,
I was thinking that
hashtag
too.
Michelle Obama. So like let's
Hmm.
just create our own separate universe and get rid of them. And I mean, but then and then Calabar is like, no, these people are shitty to us. We should get justice. Of course, his version of justice is more revenge and ruling the mortal world and stuff. So I'm not saying I'm team Calabar for that aspect, but like I also don't blame him for like that Magneto energy of like this was wrong. We were harmed, and we can't just like forgive and forget. There needs to be some
And it,
accountability here.
uh, yeah. Which like I think it starts to come into play. That's that if we were watching more of the movies, I think that would be an interesting theme to trace throughout the
Mm,
subsequent movies because like at least for the next two, I've only seen Return to Halloweentown like once or twice. So that one I'm
mm,
less familiar with than the first three. But the first three, that definitely is a theme that you could trace throughout,
mm.
of that dynamic of how much is holding humans accountable, how much is revenge, like what is justice, what is revenge, what is vengeance, what is beyond control, like yeah, and
Yeah.
the power dynamics and all of that where like there are people who have legit powers that humans don't. And also humans have a lot of prejudice and a lot of
Mhm.
harm that they can do. Yeah,
Yep.
indeed.
Um, and then the last thing I want to get into a little bit is just this plot makes no damn sense. And my one sentence summary, I was talking about how I feel like this is a TV show's worth of ideas. So I really am curious. I wonder if when it was originally pitched as a TV series because it feels like they have too
I
much going on to
yeah.
fit into a movie. Um,
Oh, they definitely have a ton going on.
And like,
definitely have a ton going on.
but
I
in
could see it being pitched as a TV show, and then they're like, no, nobody wants a like Halloween TV show in the spring, and so they just don't do it,
yeah,
is
so
what I think could have happened.
I and I think it was originally pitched for
Yeah.
ABC, so maybe it was pitched as a TV series for ABC or something, or a sitcom before it became the movie it was when Disney bought it and started to develop it. But uh so there's so much going on, but none of it is done very well. And so like there's this whole like opening act. The first act is kind of like should be an episode in and of itself, like a 40, well, 32-part opening episode in and of itself, which is the whole like discovering she's a witch, then at the end escaping to Halloweentown or something. But like all that shrinks so much that it just makes the mom especially, but like all the characters just have really, really weird and inconsistent motivations. So it's like suddenly the mom's like, I don't want you to do
Yeah.
Halloween. And then the mom's like, Hi, Grandma, let's not fight. Let's be friends. I'm gonna fight again for no reason except to move the plot along. And it's just so confusing. And it felt like the whole
Yeah,
movie was
there's a
that.
lot of like jumping the plot.
Yeah, and it feels like
MacGuffins, right?
right? And it's like the movie goes from MacGuffin to MacGuffin, and like they're shoehorned in there. So like then we get this very short middle
Yeah,
act,
this isn't the ninth Star Wars episode.
right? So it's like then we get this short and middle act where they're in Halloween Town, but we never actually get to explore Halloween Town. We basically are moved to Halloween Town, and then immediately there's a problem that needs to be solved. And necessitated right away. And so then it becomes the rest of it becomes a scavenger hunt movie where they're just going around finding ingredients in this weird montage.
Yeah.
And then we get to the end and it's like it's just like this movie was exhausting
Yeah,
to
you
try to
could,
keep up with it and make sense of it.
which like, okay, I'm a middle schooler. That's fine with me. Like, jump, 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 jump. Like, that's all I need. As a middle schooler, which I think is part of why it worked, was because it was a middle schooler type of thing. But yeah, as you're describing it, like it could totally be a Disney season, especially with how short Disney seasons have become, where they're like
Yeah.
8 episodes, right? Like
Or even
it could have been a
even if
TV show and it would have been cool.
and even if this was a truly feature-length film, but I feel like let me quick
It's
look
like
up the
one
length
hour,
of it.
20 minutes or something. It's a little,
Yeah, and
it's on the short side.
yeah, and so a typical film, even like a Disney film for children, is usually a minimum of 90 minutes, 90 to 100. So about an hour and a half. And this was shorter than that, probably to make room for commercial breaks because they wanted it to fit in an hour and a half block. And so it just is so breakneck paced and then they're but then inconsistently paced, like even I think as a middle schooler or elementary schooler there have been parts that I would have been so bored because nothing's happening, they're just talking, but it's the same
Mm.
argument that they've been having, like the whole first act is like the same argument repeated in five different situations and it's just
Yeah.
like doesn't make any sense. And I'm glad they kept part of that because that's one of the bigger payoffs, I think, is how Marnie is finally like seen and understood by the end. But like it just still it just didn't work for me. So
Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense.
anyway, I guess we can get into a deep dive then.
Yep. As we all know, there is a problematic the dark times. They do less of the like
Hmm.
dark magic versus light magic, although it is implied.
Yeah.
Um, Calabar's
And it
character, like when he's in full scary mode, is can't handle the light and is in a dark movie theater and it's dark and stormy all around him. And the way
yeah.
that they save the day is by the light from Merlin's
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And when they quote Dark Times in particular in the beginning when um grandma's telling the story, she when she's talking about the history between humans and witches
Mhm.
and other monsters and creatures and all the things, um, it sounds like she's talking about the Dark Ages, which is we don't call it that anymore either, but it feels like it's like in that specific reference, it's a reference to
Yeah.
what the commonly used term for medieval period was. Um,
Yeah.
but still, it doesn't make it better, especially because of all
Yeah.
the light dark binary that comes throughout. But
Yeah. Yep. Um, I did like the mortal see, mortal do. I just love her like little turns of phrases. Um,
mhm.
Mortals see,
And I think,
mortals do, which is like the Chekhov's gun. That was the one that was the
yeah,
Chekhov's gun for me. When she said that, I was like,
mhm,
that's gonna
mhm.
come back.
For me is when the mayor introduced himself and then immediately is like, oh, there's no problem here. Oh, okay, so he's the villain. And then it doesn't
I did
help that the
not get that at
sequel,
the beginning. Yeah.
oh, and then it helps that the sequel is literally called Calabar Returns or Revenge or something like that. So it's like
Yeah.
I wasn't paying
Calabar's
enough
Revenge.
attention to make that connection when I first watched it the very first time, but when I rewatched it for HNAC this time, I was like, when I searched Halloweentown, the second movie comes up and it says Calabar's Revenge or something. I'm like, well, now I know who the villain is for this one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for sure. And part of you were talking about this in the roll through, but the origins of Halloweentown and the like separate and unequal kind of dynamic that like they have
mhm,
existed in separation and it hasn't been equal and it hasn't like it has kept the creatures in Halloweentown safe, but at a minimum for at least one of the Cromwell witches in Halloweentown, that was not life-giving, right? Like she made
yeah.
her home in the human world on purpose. She fell in love
Hmm.
with a human. And it's weird that like 100 years is 1 year, but Luke definitely didn't age that much in 2 years being in Halloweentown. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And to that, like there's a part with her character, the mom's character, where she there it's kind of comes out in the conflict. And if especially read this as queer allegory or something where it seems like she is trying so hard to pass in a way that is harming herself and her family. So as much as
Mhm.
she's making her home in the human world, it's also clear that she doesn't fully fit in there, but she's trying so hard to like get human privilege or something that she's ignoring how much
Mhm.
is harming those she cares about, which is a very
Yeah.
real thing in queer worlds and stuff, especially among like trans people who pass can sometimes be very harmful to trans people who don't and all that kind of stuff. So, and cis white gays, because they're the closest to the patriarchy, can sometimes be really awful too. So,
Yeah. And I think that's a part of it. And I think there's grief too that she's not acknowledging. Both the grief of like
hmm,
having chosen the mortal realm, the human realm, and then the person that you're supposed to love forever dies. Like there's
yep,
grief in that, but also then the grief of having left for so long your community of origin and what that looks like in the which is again the queerness metaphor, right? That but
hmm,
like whether or not you are trying to do that, right? Like
hmm,
the grief is there whether you think it is or not, to have left a community of in which you were raised. There will always
hmm,
be grief even when it is the right thing to do. Yeah.
yeah,
Also, the one of the other themes that like we could trace throughout all four movies is the collective versus individual dynamic that
hmm,
Calabar is like the evil warlock and he's like you can't beat me and Marnie time and time again is like well maybe I can't but mom and
hmm,
grandma and Sophie and Dylan, we all can together. And
Yep.
I love that because that's a lot of the dynamic that happens between evil, which has access to greater powers because they don't have the ethical qualms about using things.
Yeah.
Um, and the balance then for good or non-evil magic and power that maybe limits the individual's power, but collectively is still more powerful.
Right.
Yeah,
And a
I
good,
like
also a good metaphor for economics too, and politics and things like that as well.
that.
And that kind of the economics of this, I just thought was so weird when um, Agatha, is that her name, Grandma, where she,
Hmm.
or Aggie, when she says, like, and then we decided to make our own town where we could have a normal life and have jobs. It's like, okay, that makes no
Yeah,
sense. Okay,
right. Like that's not anybody's life goals.
right.
Have jobs. But it
Yeah.
also like it's you don't see anybody that necessarily is doing a job that they hate,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
like in the realm of doing something to contribute to the community,
Yeah.
but in 1998, the only framing was the only framing for Disney was a job to do
Yep.
that.
I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same year that Bug's Life came out, and Bug's Life Disney Pixar film is very much a more leftist and especially socialist understanding of economics, especially for a Disney film. Um,
Yeah.
there's also this weird, so we already referenced this a little bit earlier with Luke's
Mhm.
character, but like so many characters in here are have disability, what would be considered in human society a disability, a facial deformity and stuff, and that's why they're monsters, which is why they're alienated as opposed to having powers or anything, just looking different. Um, and to the point that even within the context of this magic town, there's a clear hierarchy of those in power are attractive. Those who need to collude with those in power are so they can become attractive and gain status, are the ugly and stuff like that. And that's just gross and not cool. And that relates to what we've been talking about ever since Hacksan about what Shalor is, witches tend to be ugly. That's not necessarily the case here, but the Halloweentown inhabitants in general tend to be ugly, which is one of the reasons why they are ostracized. And ugly in air quotes of stills.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I also think though, like, yes, and if they had done Halloween Town differently, I think it could have been maybe more in line with what Magneto viewed, right? More of a
Mm-hmm.
separation that really prioritizes accessibility and accommodation for
Mm-hmm.
people instead, right? Like
Yeah.
to take into account disabilities and facial diversity and like those sorts of things. And that comes out to play a little bit in other movies, particularly around like what does pretty mean in the Halloween Town High. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's
Yeah.
a different dynamic.
Yep. I also have we started been talking about this kind of throughout, but this idea of this being like a very queer story of realizing as you're growing up that there's something different about you they can't quite name, and your parents and those around you pressuring you and even gaslighting you into saying no, it's in your head. It's none of that, withholding information uh, about you and about your history from you intentionally, and how kind of this queer coming of age is reconnecting with the sense of queer history of our queer ancestors, our transcestors,
Mhm.
of finding a culture, finding a community where we are not the abnormal one, but we are one of many diverse people. Um, and so very much so. Kind of similar also to our Wizard of Oz. There's this kind of theme of like leaving your family of origin to go to a place that, oh, I actually am welcome and I can accept who I am and it feels good.
Mhm.
And there's kind of a coming out there, even though the mom knows she's has this like defiant, like, well, this is who I'm choosing to be, and you don't have
Mhm.
to agree with it, but at least let me do this for myself.
Yeah. And she does, right? Like that mom accepts that and even invites grandma to stay for to live with them, which is
Yeah,
a whole other which then like the
really
second movie
weird.
just is weird, but yeah.
Well, the whole thing is just weird. Like, that's one thing that just leaves more questions than answers. Why would she abandon if however many years pass in Halloweentown in the span of 1 year, she's going to leave her estate that long without access to it right
An
after she
entire
defeated the mayor?
century.
And so it's like there's a power vacuum. Like, what? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
And also, why couldn't Marnie stay in Halloweentown for that year? So I don't understand. But
There
maybe that's
the
explained further, but
yeah, the subsequent there's a little bit that explains it further and kind of makes reasoning, but it is a harder like it's yeah. It's one of those like I don't think they were planning on creating an entire universe
mhm,
and universe rules when they made this, and so then they just made it, and then they started to have to like make it make sense,
yeah.
which is complicated.
And but it's even not like internally it's not consistent, even in this movie before they try to get to other ones, because like if grandma can only visit on Halloween, that's the only time you can travel between the worlds. How come everyone is shocked to see her on Halloween? Like that's the only time she ever visits you, right? Isn't that like the annual tradition? But everyone's like, Grandma, I didn't
I don't
expect you
think
here.
she I don't I don't think she necessarily comes every year. Is I think what was part of it that she hadn't come for several years, and so maybe they didn't real like it was less connecting. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
You're
but
right. The
they
universe
would have
doesn't
at
make
least
sense,
caught on. They would have at least
which
caught
is
on
another
that we
argument for it
only ever
being
see, yeah, Twilight. Yeah.
it's a
Um,
yeah. The universe doesn't make sense. That's a good argument for Twilight.
but like
Yeah.
there's a so temporalities is this whole weird thing here. And I'm writing my chapter, my dissertation is on queer temporalities right now, so it's like fresh in my mind. And even though I've been on a break from my
Mm.
dissertation to work on all my other writing gigs, but I'm getting back to it. Anyway, so temporality, just the weirdness of time, how time flexes. There are things that in communities I'm a part of, we call queer time, we call neurospicy time, we call crypt time, where time just moves differently or is experienced differently. And that
Hmm.
seems very much happening in Halloweentown versus the mortal world, or in the queer world versus the
Yeah.
cishet world, or whatever you want to say this is a metaphor for. Um, and it also kind of has scientific curiosities, because one thing that Emily and I both are nerds about are black holes and the way that as you get closer to center, the way it distorts time and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So is Halloween Town in a black hole or something that's a different universe? I don't know. Um, is there spoilers for that?
So the other piece that I wanted to talk about in the deep dive, I put in, and then I
Yeah.
remembered that it's part of the sequel. The sequel, I really love the way. So in this one, like people get mean, and then they go to the movie theater and honking, and definitely talk about black holes in a very tangible way. So I'm just
Cool.
saying,
Cool.
it's
Um,
I'm
yeah,
yeah.
I love it. Um, uh, in the Care Bears references, it's the original DIC produced um Care Bears season. They're or one of the original made for TV specials where the Care Bears go to a place and the place starts getting drained of color, and it's very similar to this. And since that was 1984, I'm clearly saying I'm in my mind, Halloweentown 2 is clearly taking this idea from Care Bears. Big
Obviously,
Care Bear fan,
obviously.
as you can see, my
Hmm.
Dracula Care Bear,
I love
Tenderheart
your drag. I
Universal
love your
Monsters.
spooky Care Bear. I love all of your spooky Care Bear stuff.
Yeah. New this year, Care Bears is doing a collaboration with Universal's Monsters, and it's really cute.
Yeah.
The last thing, though, I have is a little bit of talking about. We haven't really talked about this on the podcast yet in detail. We talked a little bit about it in season one before Emily was our co-host, but
Hmm.
this whole idea of what Halloween itself is, and now it's mostly considered a cultural celebration. It's not really recognized as a religious celebration, as Halloween itself was originally a Christian holiday that was kind of co-opting colonialist going on of taking Samhain and turning it into a Christian holiday, um, kind of similar to how Yule became Christmas and stuff like that. But Halloween in Christianity, Halloween is itself short for Hallow Even, as in eventide, as in it was the eve of All Saints. So
Hmm.
it was kind of its own special holiday, and it had
Hmm.
associated with it themes of autumn and dying and death because of the leaves falling and stuff in the Northern Hemisphere. And and it kind of gained this pop cultural or folk, I would say folk cultural legend, which is in part because of its origins as Samhain, of being this place of a thinning of the veils between the spirit
Yeah.
realm and the living realm. And even within Christianity, it's like this is a time within like Catholic Christianity, there are many forms of Catholicism that have this close connection with ancestors, and so that kind of plays into All Saints and All Souls Day, and also
Hmm.
into Halloween and Samhain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that is going on. And when we do the mortals see, mortals do thing, it there is that commentary of like, oh, this is something that is older than the cultural celebration of Halloween or even the Christian
Hmm.
celebration of Halloween and has deeper roots. And what you know as Halloween is really just a pale imitation of what actually is it's about. And I kind of like that commentary that's running throughout this. Also, though, why did they name it Halloweentown instead of Samhainville or something? I mean, I know it's Disney,
Because
so
it
that
was
makes sense,
Disney.
but like
But
still,
yeah.
like it would have been better if it was like Samhainville in my mind. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else for deep dive?
I don't think I have anything else. I do think it's worth at least watching the second because of some of the stuff that then will come up that's nerdy, like black holes. I'm just
Mhm.
saying.
I'll try to get,
Yeah.
I can promise I'll get to it before the retrospective. I'm not sure I can get to
Okay.
it much sooner
Deal.
than that, though.
That's fine. It's a deal.
I have
So,
enough of my actual scary Halloween stuff I want to watch between now and Halloween, so.
details, details. Um, So witch lore.
Hmm,
Mm,
hmm. I already mentioned 13 years old, so which
yep.
is apparently, and it's not clear if this is all magic users or just or all creatures in Halloweentown, or if it's just witches or just witches and warlocks. But apparently, not your 13th birthday even, but your 13th Halloween. So if you're born
Yeah.
on November 1st, you would have to wait until the night before your 14th birthday, to become a true witch or live into your powers or something like that.
Yeah. And brooms, you fly not side saddle.
It's
You
true. It's
fly
true.
like a regular
That's going to
flying.
come back in my favorite witch movie of all time, Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Mm-hmm. 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 Um, yeah, we don't have a ton of new witch lore because a lot of it is
Yeah.
like
Well,
you have to want it. Like spells are connected to
mhm.
desire.
That came up a lot in Charmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is it's unclear if men and non-binary people can be witches from this. And when Dylan first starts to get his powers, Marnie says, "You're a witch," and then she says, "Or I guess a warlock." So could he be a witch if he wanted to be? It's not quite clear, or is he a warlock? I don't know, but
Yeah. I think,
it's
I
unclear.
mean, based on subsequent, he's a warlock and men are warlocks and women are witches.
Yeah.
Back in our HP at church days, when Kay and I would talk about it, I would call myself a whiz chit, a whiz. I would talk about whiz chiz,
Witches. I
I
like it.
think. Yeah. Yeah. As like a hybrid between the two. But yeah, there's not a lot of space for non-binary people, which is a fairly
Mhm.
common, if nothing else, trope for witch stuff. Even
Yeah.
though that's not like consistent with witch traditions
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
But
So far in all the movies we've watched this season, the only one that men could be witches were the Sabrina,
mhm,
both Sabrina shows, and also Haxan. I think the rest either did
yeah,
not say it one way or the other, or and only
or
depicted
only,
women witches, or would say you have to be a woman to be a witch.
yeah, yep, indeed, indeed.
Um, And also, I always like to just ask, what is the source to witches' powers? Especially because in Christian tradition, it's the devil. And in this, because it's a kids' movie, it just really doesn't say. There are
Yeah,
kids' movies, though, like Hocus Pocus, that still say witches' powers come from the devil, which I think is awesome that Hocus Pocus was bold in that way. This movie doesn't do that.
yeah. They also like the witches are clearly the bad guys
Yeah,
in
true.
Hocus Pocus and not the good guys. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can get to rating this movie. So this movie, the spell book was called a Bibliomagica,
Hmm.
and
Which I think
out
only
of
comes up in the
10.
second movie, but yeah,
Well, there was a she got no, it was the Halloweentown book in this movie that had her face in it. It wasn't a
yeah,
Bibliomagica, I think. But anyway,
yeah. But they
out
do
of
talk
10
about dragons.
Bibliomagicas, what would you rate this? Do you have a favorite kill? We didn't really see anyone die, but like get
I was thinking like
petrified or
favorite
get
hit.
hit or something,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
favorite sleigh. Um, I think for me, I this conversation did like try to bring it down a little bit, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this is mostly nostalgia speaking and affinity for Aggie Cromwell and Marnie and
Hmm.
Sophie. Um, Going in, it was a 10. I am probably gonna land with 8 Bibliomagicas.
I like it.
Yeah.
And was your favorite kill, slay, hit moment?
My favorite hit, I think honestly, was Luke.
Mm-hmm.
When he does the like self-sacrifice. And so like part of this is it's a kids movie and we'll get to the HNAC test. But in a certain respect, like that takes away because there's no kills because it's an or a
Mm-hmm.
Disney original movie, Disney Channel original movie. It takes away the kills, so it creates the space where like there's possibility for it to pass the HNAC test just because
Yeah.
they can't die. So he doesn't die, but he does put himself in harm's way. And I really just like that Calabar like tries to get him and doesn't have the magical sense or awareness to know that that's not Marnie.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would say for me, what even do I want to rate this? I say a 5 Bibliomagicas. Like it's
okay.
not bad, but it's also just really aggressively not good either. Coming to it as an adult. Uh, but
That's
my favorite
fair.
kill kind
Yeah.
of is a kill, but it's a reversible kill, which is Gwen, the mom, when like I totally the movie is in many ways or many parts are predictable. So I knew Aggie would be taken out in the movie theater. Like that's pretty much telegraphed right away that she'd
Yeah.
be taken out. But I thought that then the rest of the movie, as I was watching it the first time, how 2 years ago or whatever, I was like, oh, so then it's going to be Gwen being forced to confront that she's a witch and teaming up with her daughters and stuff like that. But then no,
Hmm.
Gwen gets taken out then too. So then it's truly the daughter. So that was like
First.
a
And she
surprise
gets
for me,
taken
kind
out
of a twist,
first. Yeah.
right? And then the other, this is kind of a twist, not a kill or anything, but a twist I really did not see coming was now I'm blanking on his name again, but the cab driver
Oh,
being
Benny.
bad. Benny. I was not he was not on my bingo card as
Well,
being
because
bad.
he
Like most of
wasn't
the other
bad.
twists, but he was trying
He
to
wasn't
kidnap them on behalf of.
no, but so what happened? Luke was the only one who did it voluntarily. Everybody else like had a spell cast on them to make them bad. And
Yeah.
then the next like the progression of the spell was from their normal selves to their
Mhm.
count like their evil selves to petrified in the movie theater.
Yeah, yeah.
Grandma and mom skipped over the evil part. So like Benny is not actually evil. He
Yeah,
just
but
had been
I did not see the twist coming of
of
him,
him
even if
being
it's not his true self, of him teaming up with the bad guy in
mm,
that. So that was
yeah.
a big shock for me when that happened.
Yeah.
Because he was so likable in the beginning, and and
Yeah.
that kind of added to the twist of it. So I like
Yeah.
that. Now, does it pass the HNAC test? You kind of already alluded to your thoughts on it. Care to elaborate some more? I have my thoughts
Yeah. So
too.
so I think Luke tries to repair some of the damage that he does
Hmm.
in working with and helping Marnie after Calabar petrifies Gwen and
Yeah.
Aggie. But also like he effectively would have been killed if it weren't a Disney Channel original
Hmm.
movie. So then it's
But he's made ugly,
tricky.
which is kind of close to a kill in this universe.
Well, but it's not, right? Like in Halloweentown, it's actually not being made ugly in the sense that we think about it here, right? Because that's
But he's
a
still
normal.
the reason he wants to go into it willingly is because even in Halloweentown, we get a sense that people don't like him because of his appearance. So I don't,
Yeah,
so I think that even in that context, like it's still a,
it's complicated because it's unclear how much is like the influence of humans and wanting to look human, and like we have separated ourselves from other humans for our safety and theirs, but they're really cool and we want to look like them, and the like
and
dynamic
all of our
of
people in power
humanoid
look like
pretty
humans.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah,
yeah.
I,
And I
I
think
think,
there's a
oh, go
space
ahead.
for
Yeah.
mom. I also think there's a space to talk about Gwen
Yes.
and the harm that she does. And I think that one does
Yes.
pass the HNAC test in that
Hmm.
he recognizes she has done harm and she starts to try to make it better by inviting Aggie to live with them.
Yeah. But only after she dies too, by being turned in
Yes.
stone. I would say so for me, what's interesting is the HNAC test. Our big question, of course, is do they die and is that how they're redeemed? And I would say that this is one of those that there's a lot of gray area or where our test isn't as clear cut as it might otherwise be, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it just lends itself to good discussion. Is
Mhm.
when he long before he dies, he starts to repair the harm. And the death
Mhm.
is an inevitable consequence of it, but it's not like we see in most movies where it's like Darth Vader only at the very end sacrifices
Like
himself
changes
to
his
save
mind and
everybody.
sacrifices. Yeah.
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 Whereas he dies as part of the work of repairing the harm, as
Yeah.
opposed to just
Yeah.
sacrificing himself to get out of it. So I think that makes it a little trickier, but especially because he doesn't actually die, I think he definitely passes the HNEC test. And of course,
Yeah.
as you said, I agree about Gwen too passing.
This is our first movie that passes the test that we're like covering
Yay!
after having created the test. Halloween
Yep.
Town passes the HNAC test. Woo!
When I get time for social medias, I'll have to add that.
Yeah.
Did you
I
have
did
any
not,
jump scares for this
I
movie?
did not. I don't know if I did in the original watching of it. It's possible that I did, but not
There's
in
like
this watching.
such low stakes horror that like is clearly meant for I would say even an elementary school audience beyond just middle school audience that like
Mhm.
because I feel like Hocus Pocus is more middle school audience. This is definitely clearly veering younger side of middle school, if not elementary school,
Yeah.
to
I
the
mean, I was
point
11,
that
right?
like there is no like they're going out of their way to have scary looking things still be like not scary enough to actually scare you. And it's
Yeah.
kind of this winking, fun kind of sense of scary. So I don't think
Mhm.
there's like it lends itself to jump scares even for little kids.
Yeah. I think
So
there's like when he hits what ends up being Gwen in the theater,
mm,
I think there's a possibility of a jump scare there. Um,
mm,
and I think with Benny, with evil Benny, where they're like, Sophie's like, Something's not right," and then he like tries to
yeah.
grab him and pull him in. But yeah,
Um, our next movie, I'm so excited because it is a very deeply theological movie. Do you know anything about this movie? Have you seen it before, Emily? The Witches of
um,
Eastwick?
I know that it came out in 1987, and I know
It
this
did.
because it's written in our outline for this episode.
Okay. So you have not seen this one then. Spoilers for next one. You can already take a shot for Emily not having seen it before the podcast. But just a little sneak peek for our listeners. You if you can watch this movie, try to watch it. First of all, the casting is off the walls. It's wild. You have Susan Sarandon, you have Cher, like and you have Gwyneth Paltrow. No, not Gwyneth Paltrow. You have I can't think of her name, but Michelle Pfeiffer as the leads along with Jack Nicholson. So like the casting itself is just bizarre, but it is such a deeply theological movie. Based on a book by John Updike, who writes a lot of kind of religiously themed books, and it's basically the idea if what if the devil moves to small town America and gives these three depressed housewives slash widows slash women who are down on their luck magic so they can become witches and start manifesting their dreams? And
Mm.
it's just wild. It's polyamorous. It's weird. I can't wait for it. So, Witches of Eastwick, definitely one to tune in if you have not seen it. And it's not really scary either. So, um, no matter
I'm
where you are on the spectrum of horror fan, you can watch that.
I
yeah,
remember
I'm
feeling there was
excited for it. I
like
think it'll be really cool. Um,
Yeah,
I remember feeling that there was like a lot about gender in that. I haven't seen it in a while. I'd
that
be
too,
interested
for
to watch
sure.
it. There's a lot of like, here's where I mean, we're talking about the 80s, so there's like there's questions about like gender and gender roles, and then there
Yeah.
was like the beginning of what ended up being this renaissance of female, like in the early 90s. It's
Yeah.
this renaissance of female
This
empowerment
is,
came back, and this is kind of like the beginning of it, like
yeah.
before Thelma and Louise, Witches of Eastwick like opened
Yeah.
up.
Which also
uh,
has Susan Sarandon.
yeah, a feminist awakening. It was not perfect, like there's still issues, but like
Yeah.
there you can see
It
like
is, it's very much a female empowerment theme, intentionally so.
mhm,
And like you said, some of it's done better than other parts. I mean, it was
right.
written based on a book written by a man, but still, it's like that's the theme is like women becoming empowered first by the devil,
mhm.
and then not sharing any spoilers, but what happens after that.
Well,
Um,
there's like a lot about like gender roles,
yeah,
like what's a woman's role in any given family unit. I felt like, and so like
yeah,
I would say before Thelma and Louise, Witches of Eastwick like was like an indicator of this like awakening of feminist
yeah.
empowerment that was about to come in the 90s. That like,
Hmm.
for me culminated with Lilith Fair, but like. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of gender in the next one, and I think you'll like watching it from that angle, Emily.
yeah. I will
Good.
say just watch. I always try to put like where the movie's streaming so you can see it. It is streaming today on Tubi, but you have to, when this is being aired live. So Tuesday, October 29th. But Just Watch says it's leaving Tubi today. So that's a short window of time to watch it, but that likely means it'll be streaming somewhere else once it's off Tubi. So I don't know where it's going to be streaming, but you can try to find it. It's worth a watch. I'd even say it's worth a rent if you're interested in renting it and have the funds to do so. At very least, it's worth checking out from your library if they have the DVD or Blu-ray of it.
Yeah. And that's it for our show. Our theme music was by Matt May, and our super witchy techie magic, wild magic is Susanna Porter. Horror Nerds at Church releases seasonally with a live video on Tuesday evenings and audio on your favorite podcast provider on Thursdays. Please comment, rate, and subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to submit your pet costume contests by going to
Yes.
bit.ly by going to bit.ly/HNAC Pets 24 with HNACP all caps HNACP ETS 24 by the end of Halloween.
Hmm.
Mhm, 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 mhm. We're a little queer and we're not going to wake up first thing in the morning on November 1st, just so you know.
Yeah, you can
Um,
submit to us on November 1st a little bit. Maybe by noon, November 1st. We'll wake up by
yeah,
then.
yeah, I will hopefully be awake by noon on November 1st. Um, Support us on Patreon and get access to exclusive movie commentary episodes, YouTube episodes, and more bonus content by going to patreon.com/horror nerds at church. Starting at only $5 to sign up, it is way cheaper than buying your first broom. Follow us on social
But
media, Facebook and Instagram.
I was just going to say, but it is not cheaper than the free transportation apparently between Halloweentown. I'm all about public access, free public transportation. Yes, Halloweentown. Anyway,
I'm a little
continue Daily
annoyed that
4.
Halloweentown has like better
Yeah.
transportation. Like they can get transportation, but we can't get the red line in Baltimore. Like so, I
Right?
have feels.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, special bonus background information. Emily Roski, who played Sophie, withdrew from acting, so that's why she is not in the final film of Halloweentown.
Ah, okay.
Gave up on her child acting, and like, go you, good for you. Um, Follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Horror Nerds at Church, and Blue Sky and Twitter at HNACPOD for all the latest updates about upcoming films, news, and other announcements. Until next time, mortals see, mortals do. Happy Halloween.
Happy
Or,
Halloween!
oh wait.
Yay!